Everyone likes to feel appreciated, but sometimes the need for approval runs deeper than we realize. A compliment can lift your mood instantly, while criticism can linger in your mind for days. This pull toward validation isn't just about ego. It's tied to how the brain learns safety, belonging, and self-worth through social feedback. When these signals become too important, your confidence starts depending on the reactions of others. Understanding this hidden dynamic reveals why the search for validation can quietly shape decisions, emotions, and identity. Today, we will talk about the hidden reason you seek validation. So before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. 1. Understanding the need for validation. The desire for validation is one of the most common human psychological needs. Almost everyone, at some point, wants to feel accepted, appreciated, and recognized by others. Validation simply means receiving confirmation that our thoughts, feelings, or actions are understood and valued. While this desire may sometimes appear as insecurity or attention-seeking, it actually has deep psychological and biological roots. Human beings evolved as social creatures who depended on group acceptance for survival. In ancient environments, being rejected by the group could mean losing protection, resources, and safety. Because of this, the brain developed powerful systems that monitor social approval and rejection. When others acknowledge us positively, the brain releases chemicals associated with reward and pleasure. When we feel ignored or criticized, the brain may interpret it as a potential social threat. Over time, this system makes validation feel extremely important to our emotional well-being. Understanding that the need for validation is rooted in human evolution helps explain why people often look to others for reassurance, approval, and confirmation that they belong. 2. Early childhood and the formation of self-worth. One of the hidden reasons people seek validation comes from early childhood experiences. During childhood, individuals begin forming their sense of identity and self-worth. At this stage, the brain relies heavily on feedback from parents, teachers, and caregivers to understand what behaviors are acceptable and valued. Positive attention, encouragement, and emotional support help children develop confidence and internal security. However, if approval is inconsistent or conditional, the child may begin associating of and acceptance with meeting certain expectations. Over time, this pattern can shape the belief that self-worth depends on the reactions of others. As adults, individuals who grew up in environments where validation was limited or conditional may continue searching for reassurance from external sources. This does not mean something is wrong with them. It simply reflects how the brain learned to interpret social feedback during important developmental years. Recognizing the influence of early experiences can help people understand why validation sometimes feels necessary for emotional comfort and confidence. 3. The brain's reward system. Validation is powerful because it activates the brain's reward system. When someone receives praise, recognition, or approval, the brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. Dopamine reinforces behaviors that lead to positive outcomes. This means that when approval feels good, the brain becomes more likely to repeat behaviors that might generate the same response. Over time, this can create a strong psychological connection between external approval and personal satisfaction. Social media platforms, for example, often amplify this process by providing immediate feedback in the form of likes, comments, and shares. Each notification can trigger a small dopamine release, reinforcing the desire for further validation. While this reward system helps strengthen social bonds and cooperation, it can also make people dependent on external feedback. When approval becomes the primary source of confidence, the brain may constantly search for new validation to recreate that rewarding feeling. 4. The fear of social rejection. Another hidden reason behind the need for validation is the brain's sensitivity to social rejection. Research shows that the brain processes social rejection in ways similar to physical pain. This means that criticism, exclusion, or disapproval can trigger emotional discomfort that feels very real and intense. Because the brain wants to avoid this discomfort, it naturally seeks behaviors that increase acceptance and reduce the risk of rejection. Validation serves as reassurance that we are socially safe. When others approve of our actions or opinions, the brain interprets this as confirmation that we belong. This sense of belonging is extremely important for emotional stability. However, when the fear of rejection becomes too strong, individuals may start relying heavily on others' opinions to determine their own value. Instead of trusting their internal judgment, they begin looking outward for constant reassurance that they are accepted and appreciated. 5. Identity and social comparison. Human identity is often shaped through interaction with others. From an early age, people compare their abilities, achievements, and opinions with those around them. This process, known as social comparison, helps individuals understand where they stand within a group. While comparison can sometimes motivate personal growth, it can also increase the desire for validation. When people observe others receiving recognition or praise, they may begin measuring their own worth against those standards. This can create pressure to seek approval in order to confirm that they are performing well or living up to expectations. In modern society, social comparison has become even more intense due to constant exposure to curated images of success on digital platforms. As a result, the need for validation can become stronger because individuals are constantly evaluating themselves against others. 6. The role of uncertainty. Validation often becomes more important when people feel uncertain about their decisions or abilities. The human brain prefers certainty because it reduces anxiety and makes outcomes easier to predict. When individuals doubt their choices or question their competence, they may turn to others for reassurance. External validation provides temporary relief from uncertainty by confirming that their actions are acceptable or correct. However, when this pattern becomes habitual, people may begin relying on external opinions instead of developing internal confidence. Instead of trusting their own judgment, they wait for approval before feeling comfortable with their decisions. 7. Emotional security and belonging. At its core, validation is deeply connected to the human need for belonging. Feeling understood and accepted by others creates emotional security. When people receive empathy and recognition, it strengthens their relationships and reinforces their sense of identity. Validation in healthy relationships can improve trust, communication, and emotional support. However, problems arise when validation becomes the only source of emotional stability. If someone feels valuable only when others approve of them, their self-esteem may become fragile. Any criticism or lack of attention can suddenly feel like a personal failure. 8. The difference between healthy and unhealthy validation. Seeking validation is not inherently negative. In fact, healthy validation plays an important role in building relationships and reinforcing positive behavior. Encouragement from others can motivate growth, strengthen confidence, and create meaningful social connections. The problem arises when validation becomes excessive or necessary for every decision. In unhealthy patterns, individuals may constantly look for reassurance before expressing opinions, making choices, or sharing ideas. This dependence can limit personal growth and reduce confidence in one's own abilities. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up, leave a comment, and click the button to subscribe.